Yes, indeed. Welcome into an all-new episode of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. We have players on the ice in camp. Preseason games are coming. Oh, baby, hockey's close. We are back here. I am at Pucking Thoughts. The man over there is at Anthony Rivera, at Ant Rivera 86. Man down there, Christopher Merez, at Fuzzy Chris 91. Fellas, we're so close. We can taste it.
Yeah, right on the taste buds. We're getting close. We are there. Players at camp, and we have taken you through the off season onto this big time right now, and we're glad you're with us, and we'll be with you all season long. So saddle up.
Yeah, this is the final stretch. There's less than 3 weeks until the start of the NHL season. So yeah, just like buckle in. Training camps are going to start. We're going to argue about players and what lines that they're on, even though it's literally made up. It's just like throwing stuff at a wall, seeing if it sticks. So, the Leafs have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. It's that time of year. We're all here. You know what I mean?
And new hockey team this year. We get to see the new Utah Hockey Club this year. That's always exciting when a new franchise is around. But plenty to talk about. 2 more mock drafts. We got one today, one next week, and then the real deal the following the first Thursday in October 3rd. And then season's right after that. And like Anthony said, we're almost at the finish line. We're trying to get you there. Latch on to us. We'll get you across the finish line. So there we go. So excited to talk some hockey today. Let's just jump right into the headlines here. No, what do we got in the comments? We got Marek Doucet. Hi guys. Hi, right back at you, Marek. Unfortunately, sharing a first name with former Ranger defenseman Marek Malik, who had one of the nicest shootout goals of all time. But other than that, just a complete, train wreck of a defenseman for most of his career.
You'll only remember that shootout goal. That's all I remember about him. I know it was against the Washington Capitals, and I think everybody was shocked that he pulled that off.
Now, I remember I had that as part of like my mini plan, but I had to sell the game because I had like my cousin's sweet 16 or college graduation or something like that. And I remember getting the text about like, oh my God, my buddies that took the ticket, like, oh, the goal, like this was crazy. And this was before you could get the highlights readily available. And then saw it that night. And I was like, man, I missed that. That stinks. But hey, that was his high water mark. Let's get to on the ice here. First up, Boston Bruins GM Don Sweeney said that RFA goaltender Jeremy Swayman will not take part in training camp without a contract. The 25-year-old Swayman is expected to start and handle the lion's share of games after the Senators acquired Linus Ullmark. Swayman made $3.475 million on a 1-year deal last year, which was awarded through arbitration. He decided not to file for arbitration. And they're going to negotiate between Sweeney and agent Louis Gross in 44 games last year. He played 44 games last year, and in 4 seasons with Boston, he's got a 79, 33, and 15 record, 919 save percentage, and 234 goals against. So, and there was other things Sweeney said, the typical, oh, it's disappointing that he's not going to be here and grow with the team and get the reps and all that stuff. But I mean, Swayman's got a chance here, and he's got to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Pardon my French, but it feel like Don Sweeney's being an a-hole right here. Like it is first of all, I love that he lost it at Paul Bissonnette and the boys over at Spit and Chicklets, like as if that matters to anything, because he just got tilted that for whatever rumor that he believes in. But also, like this has been a battle between Swayman and Sweeney right now. They went to arbitration last year, and like arbitration is not a fun thing. It's basically the team telling you why you're not worth the money that you think they are. They're coming up with every reason not to pay you. So I'm assuming that was, not fun. And now he decides he's not going to file, and he's going to stick it to the Bruins, as he should, right? I am all for the players getting paid. Jeremy Swayman deserves a nice hefty bag. Probably needs a forklift to kind of bring the money to the bank over. But yes, I mean, Sweeney, obviously, that press conference basically confirmed that he's starting to sweat bullets because they don't have Linus Ullmark. He's off at Ottawa. He's ready to lose about 30 games this year. So they need Jeremy Swayman to kind of be there. I like how he said, like, he's like, I don't know, like restricting his services. Like he's not signed, buddy. He doesn't have a contract, and that's on you. So figure it out, boat the money into him, whatever he needs. And good for Swayman for kind of just saying, hey, man, just like this has been a not fun experience. Pay me. And Sweeney's just, like I said, he's just being an a-hole now.
And this is, just to be clear, this is not a situation where you see sometimes where a player's unhappy with the current terms of their contract and say, I'm holding out. Looking at you, Hassan Reddick, I'm a Jets fan. They better beat the Patriots on Thursday Night Football tonight. But yeah, he has no contract. So yeah, like he's not, why would he show up? You tweak a knee, you tweak something, and all of a sudden, oh, well, now there's an injury. Yeah, so no, there's no reason for him to show up. So, but yeah, I mean, if they want to go into the season with Eunice Corpusalo as their guy, that's their problem.
Well, the ball or the puck is in Swayman's net, I guess. I mean, I don't know how to switch that around into more hockey terms, but Swayman has all the leverage here, right? You know, you trade Linus Ullmark, and that puts all the leverage in Swayman's corner. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They need a goaltender. He's the best one available right now. And, you know, if they don't sign him, they're going to be in a lot more trouble than they were at the end of the season last year.
Another thing he mentioned was that, he'll be confident that he'll be in before December 1st because otherwise the contract isn't valid for this year. Oh, good. So you're confident he's going to be in almost by the 2-month mark of the season. Good for you.
By the time the Bruins fall out of the playoff runs, yeah, hey, welcome in, bud. Take a seat here.
Hey, by the way, Secret Santa, you got to fill. I know you just got in the door, but we got to get the Secret Santa going. Only a few weeks.
Yeah, let's not pretend like we don't want to see a downfall from the mighty Boston Bruins. So, you know, if they get knocked out of playoff contention, which Chris predicted last year would start, so maybe it's starting 1 year later, you know, maybe another team can get the opportunity.
We'll see how that plays out. I don't think it gets that long. I think Swayman is there by opening night. Because at a certain point now you start to hurt your own value if you're not playing because now you're not with the team. Like right now, the team understands you got to get yours, but then past a certain point, it starts to become an issue in the locker room, no matter what people say public. Now, staying in the Atlantic Division, we can all breathe a sigh of relief. The Rasmus Dahlin upper body injury isn't serious, and he'll be back on the ice sometime during the preseason, according to Lindy Ruff. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a scare there. It's like, oh boy, there's a guy that we're all saying top 3, top 4 fantasy defenseman, and yeah, to see him go down with the UBI, and then they were being secretive about it. But all's well ends well.
I was the first to breathe a sigh of relief here because I've been pumping Dahlin's tires here for a little bit. You know, this is a Rasmus Dahlin stan account half the time. Like we support him, not the Buffalo Sabres per se or the city of Buffalo, but definitely Rasmus Dahlin. So I'm happy it's nothing serious because I'm hoping to kind of scoop him up in a couple of fantasy hockey leagues that I got coming up here. So good for him. Bubble wrap him at best and make sure nobody touches him.
Well, even if they kept this kind of under wraps, yes, he was injured, but they're not telling you what the extent is or whatever. You know, you look into fantasy hockey and you wonder like, oh, maybe some people will stay away from him. So like now I can draft him and pick him up because of the extent of the injury, which, you know, now we know what it is. So, you know, that's not a big problem, but that just happens. You know, you got to put that into account. Thankfully, he's going to be okay. And yeah, another Chris Stan right there. He was on the Devon Levi train. But I feel like this is going to work out a whole lot better.
Yes.
And let's face it, Buffalo cannot afford. I mean, no team could afford the loss of a caliber defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, but especially the Sabres. Yes, they got Owen Power. Maybe it's a chance for him to grow if Dahlin were to miss any time if the injury came back up again at some point. But no, that is not a guy you can afford to lose for any sort of significant amount of time. Speaking, let's go around here. The Colorado Avalanche. Jared Bednar, head coach, said that there was no timeline for a return for Captain Gabriel Landeskog with a knee issue. Well, I've been seeing go late in a lot of mock drafts, and I'm still not ready to waste a draft pick on him at this juncture. He also said forward Arturi Lehkonen out of shoulder surgery, no timetable for him either. The team will be out without Val Nichushkin, who was suspended until mid-November. Quote, Bednar, Val has kind of let us down in regard in the last couple of years. It's a little different situation when you start dealing with someone's personal life. I do think Val cares. I do think he's a really good teammate. He's got some growing to do. The Avalanche can't afford another season of Nichushkin showing up, being a guy they rely on, produce, and then all of a sudden, nope, sorry, now you're gone for what? Well, I don't know what the next step is in the suspension process, but it's going to be longer than 6 months.
Aturi Lekkinen is one of those hidden gems for me when I'm drafting in fantasy. He always puts up some good points. Now, I wonder with Landeskog, I mean, he's been out for so long, and obviously you wouldn't really draft him in a 12-team league, but if it was something bigger, is that like a guy that you're like towards the end of the draft, you're like, I'm going to star him, maybe if he's the last pick, we'll stash him on IL and see what happens, or IR.
14-team league, maybe. And 12-team league really depends, like how the draft goes. But a 14-team league, I'd consider it just because it gets really deep. Less than that, though. I mean, yes, we do say draft them and stash them on the IR, which is not a bad way to go. But you have a certain point where you don't want to waste a round on that when there's still somebody that might be able to play for you a decent amount.
I would take him in a 12-team league with my last pick, especially if I have an IR spot. I could then, so basically draft him, stash him, and then I wouldn't necessarily put in a waiver claim right off, but I would then fill that spot with another player that I would know that would be available, if that makes sense. Like I could let him go, but most leagues won't let you pick up a player off of waivers and just stash him immediately to your IR. You kind of got to put him on your bench and then put him. So I would avoid that. I would just take him and then IR him immediately. Like the minute the draft is over, 30 seconds later, he's on IR. And then I'm looking to add a player to it. Again, if you're at that point of the draft, you're late, you're mostly taking shots here. So you can have that open spot. You can kind of see what's happening in camp, what players may get an opportunity. Like you don't have to commit to that last pick. You know what I mean? Like it's a dart. So for me, I would take him. Anything short of that, 18-10 leagues, no. 14, 16 teams leagues, if you're that kind of degenerate, he's probably not there, and he's probably going to get taken because, like, you don't know what the upside is here for him. He could come back, play one game, figure out it doesn't work, or he could desperately help the Colorado Avalanche, who are just, that top six looks pretty bad.
Kind of like that Max Pacioretty who came back and played for like a game or two, gave you about like 5 or 6 points for a couple of games, and then he was back injured again.
With Landeskog, he's been out so long though too. That's what I worry about with him. Like there's a point where it's rest becomes rust, and he's starting to get to that. I think because let's not forget he logged a lot of miles playing wise before the injury.
Right, but he could still. Here's the thing though. He would probably end up playing at some point with Nathan McKinnon, probably the second best player on the planet right now, and Mikko Rantanen. So, like by default, he could just rack up a bunch of points. So if I can get a guy in the 12th round who's going to see any amount of time on the first line and first power play unit, sign me up.
Marek wants to know who we are avoiding in our drafts. You'll have to stay tuned for when we do mock draft number 9 a little bit later in the hour, and we'll talk about all that stuff as we go through because we're doing a 12-teamer today, so we'll have some time to go through all the picks. So stay tuned for that. So also staying out there in the Central Division, Jason Robertson will miss most of training camp, but is expected to be ready for the start of the season after surgery to remove a cyst from his foot. Apparently unable to put weight on that foot right now. As soon as he's able to do that, he'll be back on the ice. Evander Kane will have procedures to repair 2 torn hip adductor muscles, not abductor, 2 hernias and 2 torn lower abdominal muscles. Damn, sounds like he's got a tough time getting around right now. All of which stemmed from the 33-year-old playing through a sports hernia last season. No timetable for recovery, but he's definitely going to miss the start of the season, which we kind of knew there. We've talked about Evander Kane, and yes, like we know it's McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and stuff like that. But when Kane's playing well, that Oilers team really just goes up to another level.
I mean, he's not the player he once was. Also, poor homie, man. All those muscles and stuff. Like, Jesus, guy sounds like he was pulled apart by a bear.
Just think about getting out of bed in the morning with that list of injuries.
I have no injuries, and getting out of bed is tough. So I can't imagine being Evander Kane right now trying to get up. Like if I get out of bed too quickly, I might get a sports hernia. But good for him to get that fixed up. And again, he's probably more of a bottom 6 role player now, but like the scoring is there when you need it. He can bring some energy, throws his weight around. He has a spot on that team, but first things first is he's got to get all that sorted out. He like both abductor muscles. That's Hobie's basically like he's 1 tear away from being in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
I was going to go back to Jason Robinson real quick because him missing, maybe he'll miss training camp, but I'm sure it's going to take him a while to, heat up and get ready as the season's going along, which puts a lot more emphasis on my guy, Wyatt Johnston, who I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about shortly when it comes to right wingers. And you talk about a guy to avoid in your drafts, Merrick, a guy you probably want to draft is a Wyatt Johnston.
Yeah, we are talking right wings today, and I got a feeling once we get past the top 5, it could get a little contentious on who's going to go where there because there's a lot of directions you could go with the right wingers. Going back to the center position, a little bit of old news, but you got to mention it at this point. Sidney Crosby signs a 2-year extension worth $8.7 million per season, so he's going to have at least 3 more seasons in the Steel City because he's got 1 more year left on his current deal. Can't imagine he plays beyond that. I think the last year of that deal is a Sidney Crosby farewell deal. He does not strike me as a guy that wants to play until he can't. He wants to go out while he's what he considers to be acceptable. For other people, it would be career seasons. But I don't like once he gets to like a 30-30 season, he's probably like, all right, I'm out.
And Sid the Kid's still a top guy. I mean, he's like, we're still going to be drafting him in the top, top 20, top 30 right now. He wasn't going anywhere. There's no doubt.
No, I also love that he hasn't taken a pay increase in 15, what is it now? He's going to play like 19 years, making $8.7 million. Like that's a team friendly deal there. Some people thought Leon Draisaitl took a team friendly deal, like Lamau. Sidney Crosby took a team friendly deal there. That is probably $2.5 million below market value of what he's worth. He probably could have gotten 10.5 for like 4 years. And he's just like, hey man, he's kind of like the guy who brings back his lease to the dealership and just says, can I just get another one? And it's literally the exact same thing. He just showed up, probably said, Doobie, give me the 8.7 for 2, signed it, and then just said, okay, and then left. I feel like that was a very easy contract to sign, but good for Sid. Hey, he's giving the Penguins every opportunity to keep that team competitive. And that's what you want from your best player, right?
I love that he's still out there. Like, one of the things the Penguins do with their season ticket holders is players go and hand deliver them. Crosby's a guy that could easily be like, you know what? I did it forever. I don't want to do it anymore. And he's still out there delivering the tickets and stuff like that. I mean, when he first came into the league, he had the reputation of a whiny crybaby and all that stuff. And, maybe that gets magnified when you're a fan of a team like the Rangers or the Flyers, where you're seeing him 6+ times a year back then, the way the schedule was. But I mean, he really got beyond that, and like he became a guy that like you can't dislike him, you can't hate him. Like all he does is go out and play. He got the injury history behind him early in the career with the concussions. And all he's done since then is just go out and play and have 80, 90 point seasons and be just a top player and one of the best players of all time. And he still plays at an elite level.
Has he ever been suspended? I feel like he hasn't even ever been not even like accidentally of doing something. Like Sid is literally the definition of like what an elite hockey player is through every sense of the word. Like I can't, like Tom Wilson, we know, yes, but I can't remember a time where Sidney Crosby has done anything to deserve a suspension. Like you said, good guy for the community, good guy for the team. He's, shooting commercials for Tim Hortons still. I mean, man's just elite.
How about this? So he's never been suspended. He did not get his first game misconduct until February 12th, 2023.
Damn.
That was his first game misconduct.
Well, was it against the Rangers or the Flyers?
Let's see. Against the Kings of all teams, believe it or not.
He just wanted to get to the beach early.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
I could still catch sunset. It's late enough that if I get out of here by first intermission, not that far over in by the Staples Center. But anyway, one more thing to get to before we get to our top 10 right wings. A couple of captaincy congratulations are in order. Victor Hedman in Tampa Bay, Nick Foligno in Chicago. I think both are good choices there. Hedman's in, you could say Kucherov or Point, but I think like Hedman just has that presence about him. Plus, he could probably beat the crap out of anybody that says otherwise in the locker room because he's massive. And in Chicago, Bedard's not ready yet. You can't put that captaincy on his sweater yet. Foligno's an excellent transitional captain until Bedard's ready to take that responsibility.
I would have given it to Connor, man. I like, it's okay. I get what they're doing. The Ducks also named Radko Gudas captain of the Anaheim Ducks, and I was like, okay, bud. But I just would have given it. I know it is tough for young players to be captain of a team, but I just feel like Connor McDavid is different, right? Like, I think he could handle it the same way Sidney Crosby.
Connor Bedard.
Yeah, right. But Connor Bedard could easily take the same way Sidney Crosby had taken it from Mario Lemieux at a young age, the same way Steve Yzerman took it when he was at a young age. Like, McDavid was relatively young as well. So I get wanting to shelter him and the responsibility that comes with it, but I mean, I just wanted them to give it to him. But I'm also here for chaos. So what do I know?
I think, if maybe they went to Bedard and they said, hey, we're ready to give this to you if you're ready. And he said maybe he's declined it and said not right now. I mean, listen, Chicago is a big sports town. He is going, let's face it, Caleb Williams obviously is the big story in Chicago right now, but the Cubs, the White Sox are one of the worst sports teams in the history of sports, let alone baseball this season. The Bulls aren't really doing much for you. So you got to be careful how quickly you put him out there, because right now, after, there's a little bit of a vacancy in the Chicago sports landscape after the Bears. So, and it's not uncommon for top players to not want it. I remember when Jaromir Jagr was with the Rangers, they had to basically force the captaincy upon him, and he didn't play well when he was captain because he's not wired to be a captain, and that's okay. There are certain top players that just aren't wired that way. And I think with Bedard, I'd rather wait an extra year or two than rush it and then have that somehow screw up his development.
Yeah, the Gudas one's a little surprising, right? He has, second line defenseman. You got Vetrano there. You got Zegras there. Even Alex Killorn. I mean, like, you think of some of these players. I guess I don't know. I just that one I'm a little bit perplexed by.
I think that's a transitional one too, and if there's no like forward that you want to give it to, like you said, a Killorn or a Strome, at least you're giving it to like the burliest, biggest guy that's going to go out there and back it up, I guess. Marek saying, does it really matter who the captain is in Chicago? Not really this year, more of a formality, I think, for whoever the refs are going to talk to. And State of Survival, who earlier wanted a 32-team league, we'll work on that for the 2025-26 season for sure. We'll make that happen somehow. He wants to know, would you have given Matthews the captaincy if you were JT? Or would have been better to wait until the JT contract ends? Matthews is not going to be a good captain. Guy has no fire. I think Tavares was a big free agent get. So I think you kind of had to do that. The Toronto boy coming home, all that stuff. But yeah, I think, we'll see where Matthews is at when they're ready to hand it over. But, see.
And
I don't mind.
State of Survival is a Toronto fan? I couldn't remember.
I don't know.
Not with that comment, that's for sure.
No, probably not. Although, there are teams that, fans that hate their teams that much to that point. But we'll see. We'll see what other captaincies come here. There was another team I saw that they're just going to go with alternates versus having, a true captain, which is fine. That approach works too. But we're here to talk fantasy hockey. And I think it's time for us to get to our top 10 right wings here. We have we've done every other position. I don't know why right wing was last, but here we are. You see some of the potential candidates up on the screen there. Let's get our situation going here and be ready to rock as we get situated. And yes, there is our board. So we got names, obviously, Kucherov, Pasternak, Matthew Tkachuk, Mikko Rantanen. We all know those are going to be near the top of the list. Once you get past 5 or 6, though, I feel like it starts to get interesting. So without further ado, I mean, we know Kucherov and Pasternak are your top 2 here, right? There's no debate about who's going to be 1, 2 of those 2.
No, I think Kucherov 1. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I have Mikko Rantanen at number 2.
I do as well.
Okay. Yeah. State of Survival, by the way, an Islanders fan, so keep that in mind in the future when we poop on the team. So
my apologies. Jeez.
So I mean, listen, they're a great fan base. I'll say it. They are a very, very good fan base. Yeah. They just, they deserve a break. Like, I know they made the conference finals recently, but
I went to Nassau Coliseum once. I sat 2 rows from the ice. I watched Montreal and the Islanders, of course. That barn was something, but it was $150 for 2 tickets. So great time. An arena literally in the middle of nowhere. But
It is an arena in the middle of nowhere. And the thing,
Yeah.
the Nassau Coliseum had great sight lines. Like no matter where you were in the building, you had a good seat. But if you were going to do something during the intermission, you had to pick one thing. You had to pick going to the bathroom, getting a beer or whatever, because it was one concourse. It would be so packed that it would literally take you the entire intermission to do the one task you were trying to accomplish.
But now they got UBS Arena now, so that's supposed to be a beautiful place. So I haven't gone out there yet. But do the Islanders, like, do they really need a break? I mean, they won 4 straight Stanley Cups. I know it was in the 80s, but they're like one of the last real dynasties of hockey. Do they really need a break?
So let's put it like this. I was born in 1983, and that was their last Stanley Cup. So, I mean, they probably do. It's probably
I don't
been
hate the Isles whatsoever. Like, you know, being a Devils fan, I want to see them succeed as well. So I'm not throwing any jabs at state or survival. If I was them, it's time to get rid of Teflon Lou and hit the road.
I think there are a lot of fans that would feel that way. I would be happy to move on from him coming up here in the coming couple of seasons. No New York Islanders really for the right wing category on this list. You know, I know Matthew Barzal is eligible in some leagues. Top 15, you want to argue and maybe sure, but I don't think about top 10 there with Barzal. Back to the top 3 though. So Kucherov, Pastrnak, and Rantanen. Okay, so let's start this over. Those are the 3 in our top 3.
Yes.
Is it a consensus for Kucherov at 1, or is there any outlier there? Okay.
For me, it's Kucherov 1. I mean, he led the NHL in points, power play points, and
he had 100 assists.
Yeah. When you're drafting for your fantasy league, you want points. This is the guy you want on your team if you're in like top 5, top 6. He's one of the best out there, and he's going to be top line with Gensel and Braden Point. I mean, you can't get any better than that. That'll probably be one of the best top lines in hockey if you think about it.
I tried to look and make an argument to put David Pastrnak number 1, but like you just can't not have Kucherov number 1 for all the reasons you guys mentioned. And he's got, if you want to say him versus Pastrnak for 1 for 2, there's a little, Elias Lindholm's coming in. There's going to be some settle time there, getting acquainted. Point and Kucherov have played together. There's familiarity, and we've seen, like you said, 100 assists last year. Can't really ignore that. So now we get to number 2 and 3, which we've agreed is Pastrnak and Rantanen. Both of you have Rantanen as number 2.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
You look at, I'm not a big fan of Pasternak's lines, and I know he could just play, out of this world. But when you're on top line with Nathan McKinnon, you're going to be getting some points. And on top of that, he's a free agent next year. So he's going to play off, off his rocker. So that's why I have Rantanen at number 2.
Yeah, it just feels like a 110-point season, 55 plus goals for Rantanen. His centerman is better, right? So you have Elias Lindholm on one side, and then you have Nathan McKinnon on one. He's got a better deep pair on the power play as well. Cale Makar versus whoever is there in Boston. I know somebody's gonna Charlie McAvoy. Sorry, I don't want to disrespect him. It's just the upside is there. Colorado is still elite on home ice. They can score goals. They can pound their opponents. It's like at some point, I understand it's the player that you're looking at, but you have to look at the environment that the player is in. And I expect Colorado, yes, they'll be a good team, but again, they're going to trot those big boys out all the time because they literally don't have anybody else. There's not enough depth on that team. So on good nights, there might be close games. Maybe their best players don't play as much. But on nights where they need a goal, like Rantanen's playing 24, 25 minutes a night. So I can't pass up on that kind of value. Not at 2, not at 4 right winger.
I'm not, I had Pastrnak at 2 only because a lot of the mock drafts I've been doing lately, basically you can count your top 6 being McDavid 1, McKinnon 2, and then in some order of the next 4, Draisaitl, Kucherov, Pastrnak, and Austin Matthews. Somewhere in that next 4 that it goes. So because of that and Pastrnak consistently being there, I had him slightly higher. But I'm a big Mikko Rantanen fan. I've got no problem putting him number 2. He usually goes after that top 6. He goes in that next 3 or 4 usually. So I got no problem putting him up there for all the reasons you mentioned. You've got David Pastrnak 3. We'll see the chemistry that forms between him and Elias Lindholm if that's what they end up doing and coming out of camp with. But you can't. If this is one of your top 3 right wings, you're okay. You're in good shape to start. These are all guys that are going to go in the first round. 8 team league, 10 team league, 12 team league for sure. 8 team league, maybe one of those guys falls into like the second round at the very early portion. Any of these 3 in your top right side, you're okay.
Yeah, they'll probably be going around, what would you say, from 5 to 5 on? Because you think of the top 4 being McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Austin Matthews, probably your top 4 picks going, and then these guys will fall in line right after that.
Yeah, there's no way they're sticking around past pick 10.
Yeah,
if they are, grab one, but I don't think I don't think they are.
And it's no slight to Pasternak either. Like, if you draft Pasternak, you're getting a guy that's second in shots on goals. He top 10 in goals and assists. I mean, you're getting a really good player. It's just, we think that Mikko Rantanen right now, top line with McKinnon, who's top 3 player in fantasy. And then the being a free agent to me has to factor into this. I mean, this guy's going to be playing for his money.
Yeah, like we're cherry picking the color of the Ferrari at this point. Like, do we want it red? Do we want it black? Do we want it yellow? It's still a Ferrari. That's what we're getting here. So there's nothing wrong with any of those 3.
I mean, this is your top tier here. Now, for our 4th right wing, are we in agreement of Matthew Tkachuk being that 4th guy, or is there another candidate?
I had Zach Hyman.
Nope, I had Matthew Tkachuk there. I feel like that's a fair spot for him. Maybe the point totals, I don't know if they'll be as high. His shot volume is good, but he can also mix it up a little bit. He can go out and get you those penalty minutes because he's going to be running his mouth or doing something, chomping on that mouthpiece. Not as many block shots. He doesn't hit as much as his brother Brady does, but he can still properly fill a lot of categories. Whereas to me, I don't think Zach Hyman can do that. He's a very, to me, I feel like he's a one-trick pony, which is scoring goals, which is the most important thing, obviously, in fantasy. But I need my top player to be able to fill out some other categories, and I'm not going to get that from Zach Hyman.
Hyman, because I had him 5th, so I mean, I assume that's probably where we're going to be slotting him. With everything you said about Tkachuk, and my question being, would you consider Tkachuk the bottom of the tier 1 of right wings or the top of tier 2 of the right wings? Do we slide him into that first class?
Bottom tier 1.
Bottom tier 1. I would agree. All right, so there we go. We got Tkachuk right there. So like I said, the first 5 I thought we were going to go relatively easy, and then I think it's going to become a real who's got who where. So we're okay with Zach Hyman 5 on the top line with McDavid, plays on that marvelous power play unit. No reason to not have him in the top 5. He's got left wing eligibility too. He was up there in the top 5 with the left wings as well last week, I believe. So,
yep, I can live with that.
All right, so here we go. Now we get to number 6. I put William Nylander there. I mean, he over the last few years, he's really proven it. I think he's a better right winger than Mitch Marner at this point. He's got over 40 goals the last 3 years. I love the production is there. I think at this point, Nylander has been going early to mid second round, late second round. He's somewhere in that mix. And I think if you miss out on those top few guys and you wait, he's definitely a good consolation prize.
I would feel better about Willie Nylander on this list. I have no problem putting him at 6. I want him to play the wing. And I know Toronto seems to be dead set on giving him a shot at center, which I'm sure he can handle. But the center position requires a ton of work, which is why I don't play the center position. I do sometimes in my Thursday night league, and it doesn't go well when I'm losing every faceoff. There are so many responsibilities that you need down the middle. You're basically facilitating the play. And I just think it's you have centerman in Toronto. I mean, say what you want about, John Tavares. He's still a centerman. And at that money, he's not a third pairing centerman. So I would like Willie Nylander to play on the wing, because I'm afraid if they put him at center, who's going to flank him on each side of the wing? Are you going to put Max Domi next to him? So who cares? Just put Domi down the middle anyways. Take some responsibility away from him and let him do what he does well anyways. There's no reason to saddle him with more kind of responsibility here. You could have Willie Nylander on one side. You could have his brother on the other side, and then Tavares down the middle, or whatever concoction you want to come up with here, right? With, Nick Robertson, if anything but that. I don't like, and this is selfishly of me, I just don't want Willie Nylander to have more responsibilities because I like him more as a winger.
See, that's the problem here, though, right? Like, he has the dual eligibility, but if he struggles, that's going to affect your fantasy team either way. And this is a guy who had 98 points last season, 38 power play points, 316 shots on goal. But if he's playing center and that kind of, lowers, he has a worse season than if he has a bad, not bad season, but if he, goes down from what he had this year, that's not good for you or your fantasy team, especially if you're picking him as one of your top tier picks in the, probably early second round. I have Sam Reinhart at number 6. What is that? Yeah, 6. Second in goals last season, 57. He'll be on that top line with Barkov and Carter Verhaeghe. That's who I got.
I have Sam Reinhart at 7. He had a really good year. I want to see him do it twice. That's kind of my thing here with him. I just like, that was an explosion. That was quite the explosion too. Florida's a good team.
Contract on top of that.
And look, he got his money. Good for him. But again, I feel like that is that season an outlier? I don't know. Like, would he be just fine if he scored 40 goals? Like, yeah, that's still a lot of the NHL. But like,
he had 57 last year.
Yeah,
31 the year before that. That is quite the spike.
That's quite the spike. So I think he falls somewhere in between that. I think he's more of a 40-goal scorer than he is a 57-goal scorer. So I don't know if he's taking a step, but I do expect a little bit of regression there.
Also,
like, I don't see him
still good.
27 power play goals.
Yeah. Like he's a top 20 pick in my mind at any point, depending on what your league looks like. But like, is he better than all those guys ahead of him? Not really. Or at least I don't think he is.
I had Reinhart at 7 as well. So who did you have at 6? Well, let's you bury the leader. You had Nylander at 6 too. Yeah. Okay, so you're okay with
him. I just don't want him to play down the middle.
Now, question from the chat. She's from State of Survival. Mitch Marner should be ahead of Nylander. No. Not maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, but no, I don't know. Nylander just last year, he just blew me away. And I don't think Marner's going to be traded out of there. I think they're going to, Berube's going to try and get whatever he can get out of him to be better. But I mean, he's still pretty damn good. But I mean,
he's going to go all year fighting about that contract that he hasn't signed yet, which is going to weigh on him. He doesn't shoot the puck enough, in my mind. He's more of an assist, like he's a playmaker for for Matthews. So in leagues where goals count, he's already behind Willie Nylander because Willie Nylander shoots the puck more, scores more, all of that jazz. Even if he doesn't play with Matthews, it's fine. Willie Nylander will be the best player on his line. So that's no.
All right, so it sounds like we're going to throw Nylander 6, and then because Ann had Reinhart at 6, and we had him at 7. There we go, nice and easy. So here we go. So now, all right, we've got Nylander, we've got Sam Reinhart. We got to figure out who's going to be 8 now, and this is where I think we can start having. Is it Marner? Does Jesper Bratt come into the conversation here? A couple of suggestions was another suggestion was Andrei Svechnikov, who I'm a big fan of. Anthony mentioned Wyatt Johnston earlier. So there's a lot of ways we can go here for our last 3. So who did everybody have at 8? And then let's hash it out. I had Jesper Bratt at 8.
I had Marner. I had Marner at 8.
I had Matt Boldy at 8. I know.
Okay.
I know. Look, the Minnesota Wild are a good team, and I think they're going to continue to progress. If that center core can hold up, right? If Marco Rossi and Joel Eriksson Ek can take another step, it's just going to add to everybody around him, right? Like if Zuccarello can stay as he should be, like Matt Boldy, like I feel like he's right there. He's right there, but he's not there just yet. But the upside is intriguing to me. And I also think the Minnesota Wild, while they may be a better team, they're going to need to play a little bit of catch-up hockey some nights. So that's good for guys who need to play a lot. I also like Matt Boldy. To me, he's got a spot on the top power play unit. it's, and if at some point they want to move him up, put Kirill on one side and then Boldy on the other, there's so many opportunities here. I just like the upside here. And I think Kirill gets a lot of love and Matt Boldy gets a little bit forgotten there. So if I'm going to take the upside on a player who could score 40, it's him. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go. And Ant, who'd you have at 8?
I had Marner at 8 because he's on the top line with Matthews. Even playing 69 games, still was able to score 26 goals and had 59 assists. And the fact that he's a free agent next year, same thing with Rantanen, although not the same type of player. But the fact that he is going to be a free agent, I'm pretty sure he wants to get the heck out of Toronto as quickly as possible. He might, play his ass off. So I had him at 8, but I am not, if you pick somebody else, I'm not going to be heartbroken over that.
All right, so I'm going to run through my last 3 here just so we could get those on the table. I had Brad at 8, Marner at 9, Clayton Keller at 10. So Ant's got Marner at 8. Chris, do you have Marner anywhere in your top 10?
I have him at 10. So I have Matt Boldy at 8. I have Wyatt Johnston at 9. And then I feel like I would have been prosecuted in the court of public opinion by Leaf fans if I didn't have Marner there. So I put him in the 10 spot just because he's got to be there, right?
He's a top 10 right winger. He's
a top 10 right winger. It's just I don't like how this is going to go for Mitch Marner. And I don't like that, even if you didn't want to talk about his contract, I don't care what you say. You're the hottest market right now. So if he starts to slow down at any given point or it starts to get difficult, it's tough.
Marek wants to know, where does Marner go after the season? I think that's a very interesting question. We got to see what happens here. We got to see what happens, at the deadline and then at the draft. But there's a lot of places he could go, but he's going to cost over $10 million. So it's got to be somebody that's willing to fork over that kind of cap space. So, all right. So it sounds to me like we should probably throw Marner 8th here, since we have a consensus of him remaining in the last 3 picks. So I think that makes sense here. Let's see here. So we're going to throw Marner there at 8. Now we get to 9. Now, I revealed that I had Bratt and Keller as my last 2. I can be convinced. Here's the thing. Adrian Kempe, Wyatt Johnston, Andrei Svechnikov, Cole Caulfield, Timo Meyer even, Boldy. These are all guys you can make arguments for in these last 3 spots, and you're not wrong. We're in that tier of right wings where there's a wide variety of, get one of these guys, you're okay. Maybe if a lot of these guys are available, you can maybe wait on right wing at this point. So we're going to have Marner 8th, but now it's time to figure out who we're going to put 9th.
I had at 9, I had Brock Besser.
Okay.
Top line with JT Miller, 40 goals, had 33 assists there. And then at 10, I had Clayton Keller, but he's probably going to play more left wing on that top line with, I think it's Hayton and Schmaltz. So if I had to change anything, maybe it is putting Wyatt Johnston in top 10, especially with not knowing how healthy Jason Robertson's going to be. So he's going to be relied upon on that top line a whole lot.
I like that Wyatt Johnston is going to play the wing, even though I think he can play center. I think that just takes a little bit of responsibility off him. Let Rupe Hands handle all that. Let a centerman handle it. If he has to move down the lineup or he has to take a face off, right? Kind of like Joe Pavelski. He could take face offs, but that's not what he's there to do. You want to play to his strengths. I can live if you put like Bratt at 9 and Wyatt Johnston at 10 or vice versa or anything like that. I could also live with Adrian Kempe being there. The rest of them, I'm kind of just like, the thing with like Seth Jarvis and Svechnikov, like he throws more hits. So if you're in a league where hits maybe matter a little bit more, I think that comes into play. Caulfield, I'm just not sure if he can hit the number of goals that we think he is. I think Montreal's gonna have a really strong top line, but I don't know if they're going to like have an explosion of goals and where Caulfield can score like 40. I think he's more of a 35 goal scorer right now and maybe pushes the envelope a little bit more. If Lafreniere could get any power play time on the top power play unit, he would have been here. But Peter Laviolette refuses to let me have nice things. So
as a Devils fan, I think I need one more year from Jesper Bratt to buy into the top 10. I don't know if I'm there just yet, but I will be drafting him in my fantasy leagues. I just don't know if he is. I think there are a couple of better players out there. The Johnsons, maybe Kempe as well. He adds hits to that. Even Cole Caulfield, I think could be top 10 over Jesper Bratt. I just am not 100% sold on him being in the top 10 just yet.
Here I am, a Ranger fan. Never thought I'd be selling a Devil to a Devils fan, but hey, there we go. So looking at his last 3 years, so 2021-22 starts to become a good player, 26 goals, 47 assists. In that year where the Devils got to the second round and they just were lighting the lamp constantly, 32 goals, 40 assists. So he's growing. He's on the right projection. Then last year, just this floor falls out from the Devils. Not a good year. Still manages 27, career high 56 assists. Now he's playing on the line with Nico Hischier, and it looks like Andre Palat will be the left wing on that line. So I'm thinking he's going to break 30 goals again for sure. If he was able to put up 56 assists last year when they were getting more attention because Hughes was hurt for a chunk of the season, Timo Meier was playing, probably not even at 80%. So now this year, a healthy Hughes playing with Timo Meier, which is healthy, they're going to start getting top line attention. I think that's going to open up even more for Bratt. So that's my argument to throw him in the top 10. But I've got no problems leaving him out for Clayton Keller, like you said, Wyatt Johnston, even Adrian Kempe. Those would be guys I would consider putting there too. So we got 2 spots left here. What are we going to say for 9?
Wyatt Johnston. That's my vote.
Oh, I agree with that.
Wyatt Johnston's kind of been one of the unofficial mascot players of our mock drafts over the last 8 weeks or so here. So let's throw him in. He deserves a spot there. So he's going to be our number 9 spot. Now we got 1 spot to go here, which means we got to start getting ready for our mock draft here. So let's take a quick pause here. Let me figure out what we're going to do for the league here. We got I think we can be ready to rock in 8 minutes. So let's see here. I'm going to pick my spot first.
What we've learned from this right here, this top 10, is that the right wings are stacked. I mean, you're not going, if you decide not to, take a right wing, from the first 3 here, and you're going to get something good no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, so right now, I think we've got a pretty good list here. Why don't one of you guys start making the argument here people in the conversation? Jesper Bratt, Clayton Keller, Matt Boldy. Who are we going to blackball any of these guys, or somebody we could be like, all right, let's leave them out of the conversation? I know you made your argument for not Jesper Bratt. So Chris, make the argument for or against.
I am for Jesper Bratt. I think the fact that it's a contract year as well, it's just, I don't know what's in the water in the contract year, man. They're built different that year. That's just, the water tastes better. The cookies are softer or chewier. So I am okay with that. If I were to make a case for someone I wouldn't put there, it would be Clayton Keller. As much as I love him, I just don't know what we're going to get out of Utah. That's still a team that looks very similar up front. They're still young. They're still growing. The whole change and everything. I want my pick to be sure at this point. I feel like I could get Keller later in drafts and get even better value for him. I think he's a top 15 right winger. I don't think he's a top 10 though.
All right, fellas, you see the link in the chat there. Let's make sure we're all ready to rock in the mock draft there. If you're in the chat and you want to participate, please, by all means, jump on in. We're doing a 12-teamer today, so it's going to take a little time, but we will get
Silver
through
Fox
it.
is back this week, it looks like.
He sure is, and excited to see him in the room there. The draft is going to start here in 6 minutes, so we've got 6 minutes to figure out who our number 10 is. I see Chris in the chat. I see Chris in the room. I see Anthony in there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots left here. So I'm gonna make my and who would you put 10 while I get this out on Twitter here?
If we're gonna leave out Clayton Keller, which I'm not upset about because I had him at 10 and I was a little about it. If we're gonna leave out Clayton Keller, I'm still going with Brock Besser.
The injuries don't worry you though?
I mean, any of these guys can get injured, right?
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
True. But I feel like with Besser, you're almost signing up for 60 to 65 games right off the bat. I feel like that's going to be your high watermark for him. So he's a guy that, like, if he's still sitting there at a certain point, like, all right, this is too good to turn down, I got to take him. But, you know, to me, I don't know, the way you're not ready to put Bratt in the top 10, his injury concerns is enough to keep him out of the top 10 for me.
What about Cole Caulfield then? Come on, Chris.
I would love to have Cole Caulfield there. I know that, you know, with the kind of the growth of Uri Slafkovsky, I think he could score more goals. Slafkovsky, I think the addition of Patrick Laine is good. A healthy Kirby Dach. It's not all about Caulfield anymore. So, and which is a good thing from a team perspective. Do I think Caulfield could get more points this year? Yes. Do I think he's going to explode for like 40 goals and like 40 assists? Probably not. So I think there's a little bit more. Yes, there'll be more space for him, but I also think there's going to be more options for him. So he's not just going to be the de facto kind of guy who's just going to be slinging it from the left side one-timer anymore, because you can have different players set up there now. Like, you have more weapons. So I want him to be there. I want him to get there. I think he is probably a 35 goal scorer. Maybe he adds 30 assists. And if he gets 65 points, that's not a bad year for him. That's not a bad year at all. 65 points, I can find that. Right? I think like Jesper Bratt had 56 assists alone. You know what I mean? And I feel like the Devils have a better offensive group right now. So like that's why I would put Jesper Bratt there, regardless of whether he gets hurt or not. Like, you know, Caulfield's not a big guy either. He could easily get smashed, and that ends everything.
I think if Timo Meier didn't get hurt last year, he may be the one that's in this conversation for that final.
Timo Meier's fault. He should have been better.
Yep.
Yeah, well, if his legs were in better shape last year, he'd be probably in this list, probably over Bratt. Bratt's one of those guys where when I was doing all these mocks and I see him going, and I'm like, I feel like that's a little early for him. And then when you do a little bit of a deeper digging, like, oh no, he's so. I was a guy that had to like turn the corner on him. So I think we're okay putting him in the top 10 there. We got a couple of minutes to go before the draft. So we got 4 minutes there before we kick things off with our 12-team mock here. We'll get a recap after that as well. So make sure it's our penultimate mock draft here. While we're let's go through our top 10 again. Nikita Kucherov, Mikko Rantanen, David Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk, Zach Hyman, William Nylander, Sam Reinhart, Mitch Marner, Wyatt Johnston, and Jesper Bratt, filling out our top 10 right wings here. So there we go. Not too bad. We did it. We went through all the positions, fellas.
We did.
We had some good arguments here for some individuals.
I think this is probably the list I think we've come to most of a consensus with, and I think we're most happy with overall. And there's really, like, I know you had Boldy a little bit higher, but I would probably put him 11th, him or Caulfield or Keller. One of those three would be next for the 11 spot.
Yep. And I just had a couple. I had 4 through 7 kind of flip-flopped. So these are pretty much on par.
So there you go. And don't forget, go back through old episodes here as our draft gets underway. It's really like 5 minutes away because it says it's 3 minutes away. Then when we get in the room, it's like another 2 minutes, which maybe I'll remember to shut the sounds off. Maybe I won't. We'll see what happens in a few minutes here. Can Toronto have enough money to sign Marner is the question here from Marek. And I just don't see it.
Toronto has no money today.
I mean, look at Edmonton. Like, okay, fine, they got Draisaitl and McDavid in, and McDavid's contract's not too far off. But I mean, they couldn't even consider Holloway or Broberg matching. They had to get Cody Ceci out of there for Ty Emberson, basically. Not that Ceci's great, but I mean, you're really risking it with Ty Emberson there. So I think just learn from another team and realize, like, you can't have everybody. And Marner's the expendable one. You chose to pay Nylander, chose to pay Matthews. You know, Tavares contract's coming up. I think Marner is the guy that has to go.
He's going to end up in Vegas once Mark Stone ends on on long-term injury reserve in February, just before the trade deadline, and then Marner's contract will fit under there, and I guess Marner will get past the second round. The first round, because he'll be somewhere else, maybe.
Is there anybody on the right side of that list before we wrap up the top 10 here with the right wings? Is there anybody that you feel like maybe deserves a shout out, even if they're not top 10 or top 15? We talked Caulfield, we talked Lafreniere, we talked Kempe, we talked Boldy, we talked Keller. I mean, maybe somebody like a Travis Konechny falls into that class. I think, he's going to play the top line in Philly. Maybe that spot is up for grabs with Mishkov if he gets out of the gate strong, but he's a guy that I think gets overlooked a little bit.
I'd say Barzal if he actually had a good offense behind him.
I would say Alex DeBrincat. I'm old enough to remember when DeBrincat scored 40 playing in Chicago. So, I mean, I've been hearing that the Yzerman plan is apparently working, but so far it's not.
Well, here's the thing with DeBrincat. He got off to that really strong start last year, and then like he went to a slump, and he kind of like bounced back and was consistent the rest of the way. It's year 2 there for him. I think there's more reasons and he hits. So I think there's more reasons to think he's going to do just as good, if not better than last year, than worse than last year. Maybe you could take advantage of that and get some value there.
I can live with that. I just have a hard time getting players on board. I know you said Matthew Barzal, and I know Status 5 was in here, but like Status 5, how good is your sleep after watching the Islanders play? Like, do they just not lull you to bed? Like, that team offensively just makes me want to pass out.
Yeah, I feel that. But I mean, sometimes you need a little sleep aid. That's all. So let's get into mock draft number 9 here as we get ready to go. Excited to do this as always. It is kind of sad that it's going to be coming to an end soon, though. That is a little sad.
But we got the real deal then coming up.
Yeah, then we get to do it for real. Then we get to stop pretending. Now we start separating the contenders from the pretenders.
Let me get the actual thing shared here before we got less than a minute to go here. Very excited.
Got a full room today. Got 12 people in here. Although Silver Fox says he's on auto draft, so if he's watching this, you might want to switch off of that.
No. Stay there. Stay there. Stay there.
Yeah, Silver Fox is okay to be on auto draft. Yeah, you can stay there. We don't need, we love a good competition, but you've kind of schooled us recently. So
you've done well, bud.
Well, the 3 of us are cornering up the end of the draft. I'll be going 9th, Chris 11th, and then Adam 12th. I'd love to see that you guys, steal each other's picks.
I mean, Chris is a little bit later than usual, so we'll see how that goes. We're probably going to be sniping at each other as we have been the last couple of weeks. I mean, we've had weeks where we've been good, and we've had weeks where we've gone at each other. Let's see what happens this week.
I feel like there's not been that much sniping during this portions of the draft the last couple weeks.
Well, there's always time. Let's see what happens today. And we
are Draisaitl too.
We are underway. So there's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl too. Sometimes you see Austin Matthews go number 2. I've seen that, but Draisaitl hasn't gone 2 in a while, since probably last year. But I don't hate it. It's not like taking Pasternak 2, where that may be a little bit early for him.
Or Quinn Hughes 3rd or 4th or something like that.
Yeah. So here we go. So we got McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Matthews, Pasternak, Kucherov falling all the way down to 6. So some people not agreeing with our take on Nikita. There goes Jack Hughes to Cameron at number 7. Mikko Rantanen going 8. So the 3 right wings off the board early here, with Anthony on the clock at pick 1.9. See what he does here. It's a lot of directions you could go here. It's a 12-teamer, so things go a little deeper. And he gets the number 1 defenseman off the board, getting Cale Makar there.
Yep, that's where he goes.
And you could probably, if you wanted to wait for Hughes on the turn, you could. But I mean, what's the point at that point? You may as well just get Makar, and then you're going to get a quality forward on the 2nd round pick there.
Well, yeah.
So Chris on the clock here. JT Miller went to Steve. Certainly a good pick there.
You guys just won't let me have Cale Makar. I went too far back.
So Silver Fox saying he took the 4th spot for Draisaitl, assuming it would be a McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews. So I sniped out of the gates for him. I'm on the clock here. I can't not take him when he's available. Brady Tkachuk. I've got shares of him in multiple leagues. He just, like we talked about in the left wing episode, fills out the stat sheet. Got to grab him there. Now, where do I go for my next pick? Here's the thing. It's going to be a long, long time before this gets back to me. I like to have a cornerstone defenseman here. So the question is, am I going Bouchard or am I going Quinn Hughes? You know what? I'm going Bouch. Why not? I'm going to take Bouchard over Hughes because of that power play unit. Hughes will probably have more assists. He's the better overall player. But I think from a fantasy perspective, Bouchard maybe just an edge over Hughes. But I mean, we had Hughes number 2 in our rankings. So there goes Kaprizov. So a Nylander, Kaprizov, right wing, left wing out of the gate. Certainly not a bad way to start for Chris.
In my books, it would have been Cale Makar, Kirill Kaprizov, but that's just not how. That's not how this draft is. I have now gotten Cale Makar once in these. What is this mock number 9? Yep. It seems really tough. If I guess if I'm not picking 9th, then I'm never getting him.
Chris is going to take like the 6th spot and take Makar in next week's mock just to make sure he gets him.
Or who knows? Maybe Cale Makar goes first next draft, just for funsies.
Just for fun. Yeah, somebody's going to take him. Hey, look, if Quinn can go 4th, I'm assuming Cale Makar could as well. Somebody will do it.
So here we go. So just to recap the picks since Kaprizov, Quinn Hughes goes 1 pick after I took Bouchard. So we got a Vancouver double dip with Steve, with JT Miller and Quinn Hughes. Then Matthew Tkachuk, our 4th ranked right wing, to Anthony. Mikko Rantanen and Artemi Panarin, 1-2 for Kevin there at pick 2-5. First goalie off the board to Cameron, Igor Shesterkin there. So he's got a Jack Hughes, Shesterkin pairing to start. There goes Roman Josi to Matthew, who pairs him with Kucherov. Elias Pettersson just goes off the board there at pick 2.8 to Mark, who has David Pastrnak. And now Silver Fox, Craig on the clock here. Did not get Draisaitl at 4 like he was hoping. So there he goes. We talked about Rasmus Dahlin earlier in the show. Everything's going to be okay. He takes the 5th defenseman there and has a Matthews Dahlin pairing to open the draft. Not too shabby.
What I like about these drafts are last week, the defensemen didn't go until probably around late 2nd round, early 3rd, they started going. And now the top guys are completely gone.
And that's why a 12-team league, like it's all about that waiting game. How long can I wait to get the guy I want? In a 12-team league, you have to maybe be a little more conservative in your estimates of how long you can wait. Better to get the guy than not get the guy, because let's say I go goalie or a forward position instead of Bouchard at pick 2.1. I have a whole round before it gets back to me. If any more defensemen go, I mean, like, I don't mean any disrespect to Miro Heiskanen, but like, he's not a number 1 fantasy defenseman to me. He's a top tier number 2, but I don't know if I want him being my number 1 fantasy defenseman.
Yeah.
And speaking of defensemen available, you got Victor Hedman, Adam Fox, Heiskanen, Morrissey, Dobson would be your next 5, whatever order you want. So other Chris, not current Chris, not fuzzy Chris, but other Chris takes McDavid, Crosby, and Reinert out of the gate with his first 3 picks and opens up the 3rd round with Reinert there. Now,
I like how Yahoo has Reinhardt as a centerman. I think he took a couple of faceoffs.
I mean, it's, Anthony and I were talking about this before, before the show, like, hey, in baseball, a guy can play 10 games at second base and then not play in April and never play there again for the rest of the year. But you know what? For next season, he's a second baseman. We'll take that eligibility where we can get it. So after Reinert goes, pick 3.2 to Old Man Dubes, great name, Jeremy Swayman. Hopefully he's there for you Bruins opening night, and that's not a guy you have to stash for a while, because some leagues, it's not an IR position, that's an NA position. So he just wasted a bench spot there. So hopefully he signs before camp. There goes Victor Hedman. Mitch Marner at 3.4 to Craig. UC Saros to Mark. He gets the first goalie, his first goalie. Jason Robertson at 3.6. Adam Fox at 3.7. So Jake Ottinger at 8. So goalies are going. All the top defensemen are pretty much gone at this point for bona fide 1As, as Ed is ready to make his pick and add to Cale Makar or Matthew Tkachuk. Braden Point. So he gets his first center there. I like that pick.
It's a really good start to your team, Ant. That's unfortunate.
I hope I'm not sniping anyone right now.
No, you're just having a good draft is what you're doing. And there goes Hellebuck to Steve. So Chris on the clock now. He's taking a couple of wingers. Let's see what's up next for him.
Come on, Steve.
I know who I'm taking if you don't take him with
right.
one of my back-to-backs here. So don't snipe.
Boy.
All right, good job. You did not snipe me. Goalies are going, so let me make sure. Listen, Vasilevsky has a consolation prize as the the sixth goalie. Come on now. And it begins. Let's see what.
My team is going to struggle.
I got a couple of different ways I can go here, but I mean, Jack Eichel on the board. It might be I don't want to say a tiny bit early for him, but I mean, I want to make sure I have a bona fide. I might move Kachuk to left wing, so I'll take Eichel there. And now I know I got a good punch there with Eichel and Kachuk being my top two forwards. To go with Bouchard and Vasilevsky. Now, I was considering defense there. Maybe that bites me in the butt. We'll see what happens come round end of round 5 for me. Chris has got some decision making to deal with here after I took Vasilevsky. There goes Kempe, a guy who did not make the top 10 right wings, but very well could have. And Chris gets his second right winger there. Now Ant's on the clock.
He's got center position eligibility, though, so I need that because I need a centerman.
There goes Mr. Bedard to Steve. Really, I like the way Steve's team is shaping up, too, as Ant gets on the clock here, as he has Point, Matthew Tkachuk, and Cale Makar, and he takes his boy, Alex Ovechkin. There goes Chris.
Yeah, it was between him and Bedard got sniped. There we go. So we're moving on.
Connor Bedard in a 12-team league does not last past usually the late third round. He went early fourth round there. And, a 10-team league, I wouldn't wait past the fourth round for him. There goes Chris Kreider and then Wyatt Johnston there to Cameron with Matthew on the clock. Marek asking, where do you get your reliable draft picks? Yahoo, Sportsnet, ESTS. It's combination of a lot of them. When I'm looking at numbers and stuff, always look in your league to make sure your settings are properly, it'll calibrate with your settings, but just for general info. I mean, the usual guys that Friedman, and all those guys. TSN is a place I like to go. So there we go. After Johnston, Tage Thompson goes, Tim Stutzel, Jacob Markstrom goes. So he's off the board now. Craig getting his first goalie. There goes Josh Morrissey. We'll see if that maybe starts a run of the, we'll call it the really strong second defenseman with old man Dubes on the clock here. Let's see what he does as the clock is winding down. 3, 2, 1, and he takes Mackenzie Wagar. Somebody mentioned guys they're avoiding earlier in the chat. And I mentioned this when we did defenseman. There's nothing wrong with Weegar, but he's just not a guy that I'm keen on. He's certainly not a guy if you miss out on a bunch of the second tier defensemen. But he's just not for me. He's just not my guy. He's not a guy that I'm really targeting in on. So Connor goes there to other Chris. We'll see how he starts the fifth round with his back-to-back picks. I'm looking at these teams right now. Everybody's got a pretty good team. Everybody's got a strong start here. Carter Verhaeghe goes.
Everybody's been learning. It's good.
Oh, I have my first real draft this Sunday, actually. So looking forward to that. I'll have to post the results online. Let's see here. We got Steven Stamkos and then Andrei Svechnikov going at pick 5-3 with Silver Fox Craig on the clock here at 5-4. Only has one defenseman, one center, one wing, one goalie. So he can really just kind of go in a bunch of different directions here with the players available. And he takes Timo Meier, which I think is a strong pick because he's going to get those hits and his numbers are going to be better than last year.
I mean, to be fair, they can't get worse. So
there goes Thatcher Demko. So we talk about, Brock Besser earlier as an injury concern, maybe holding him out of being in top 10. Demko there, I've seen him be the guy that straggles amongst goalies and kind of gets left out there. But confidence there as Mark takes him and pairs him with UC Saros, which is a goaltending pairing I've had in a lot of mocks, but usually I would get Demko a little bit later. There goes Dougie Hamilton to Matthew, and then Cameron takes Sasha Barkov at 5-7. Kevin on the clock here has not taken a defenseman or a center yet. And he gets Aho. There you go. That's the pick right there. And now we get to the guys of Total Hockey Now on the clock. Anthony about to make his pick. Took Ovechkin last round. Let's see what he does at pick 5-9 here. You're muted, my friend.
It's definitely time to get a goalie here. So we are going to take Ilya Sorokin.
Take Sorokin. All right. Bobrovsky and Skinner still on the board. Sorokin, if he bounces back, though, can finish top 3, top 5 for sure. There goes Noah Dobson. So back-to-back Islander there. That is a guy who I would have considered at my pick, but he's not there. And Chris takes Sergei Bobrovsky to get his first goalie. I know I just kind of crapped on him a little bit, but at this point, no, I'm not taking. I'm not going to take him. But I do have to decide here because the clock is moving on me. All right, Jesper Bratt. Going to get one of the top 10 right wings there. It says left wing. He's got right wing eligibility as well as a lot of the wingers do on Yahoo. And time to make my second pick here. All right. I'm going to wait on defense and shore up my crease because I feel like if I wait for the draft to get back to me, I'm not going to love my options at goaltending. So Vasilevsky, Skinner, goaltending pairing should get me the goalie categories almost every week. Could have taken Miro Heiskanen there. You know, I'm rolling the dice that I'll have a good number 2 left for me by the time the draft gets back to me, but I may be chasing defensemen, which is, just another week here at Total Hockey Now for me in a mock draft.
Name a better pairing. Name a better duo than Adam and chasing defensemen.
It's just I'm like a dog with a car. I'm never going to get it, but I'm still going to run after it. Dylan Larkin goes after Skinner there. He's a guy that I haven't been able to get in a lot of mock drafts, but I've been wanting to get him because I feel like as a low grade center 1 or a top notch center 2, he's pretty good. There goes Matthew Barzal, who has right wing eligibility as well. So a couple Islanders back to back there for Steve. Charlie McAvoy to Anthony, another guy I was considering. Sergachev, another guy I was considering, and that's going to be a guy that is very elusive to me. I'm very high on Mikhail Sergachev this year as a really strong number 2 defenseman, or even as a potential like low grade number 1 defenseman, if that's what gets to you towards when it's time for you to get a defenseman.
Speaking of players that we would avoid one round before, Thatcher Demko is the one I want to avoid. He did his press conference. He's basically dealing with an injury. We have no idea what it is. And no other goalie has ever dealt with whatever mystery injury he's had. And he had a setback in his recovery during summer. That's what I heard. And I went, yeah, that's not good, bud. He held a press conference to say nothing. And by saying nothing, he didn't give me anything to feel confident about. So I'm not touching Thatcher Demko with a 10-foot pole right now.
Yeah, if you can have a press conference and say nothing, that makes it worse. I agree. So there, we had a little too much green for my liking here. We're not even on the turn yet, back into round 7 yet. We saw McAvoy, Sergachev, and then Miro Heiskanen go 3 consecutive picks, followed by Linus Ullmark at 6.7, and then Morgan Riley going there at 6.8, and then Cole Caulfield and Owen Tippett at 6.9 and 6.10 respectively, with Old Man Dubes on the clock here. He got Steven Stamkos with his 5th round pick, so we'll see how OMD is doing with other Chris waiting in the wings. And thank you, Marek. We appreciate it.
I don't know if my team is very good.
There goes Cider, and all of a sudden my options for a good number 2 defenseman
are dwindling, my friend.
They are indeed dwindling. I don't like it.
It's usually about that time, no? When defensemen start ripping off the board.
It's about that time. I'm hoping that because more went earlier than had in recent mocks, that wave kind of settles down for a little bit, because there's one guy left that if I got him, I'd be okay with that as my number 2 defenseman. But I don't know. See.
Well, I don't think he's coming around to you.
Travis Konechny and Rupe Hintz go to other Chris to close round 6 and open round 7. So nice value there. Drafting on the turn, you have to be ready to maybe give up on some guys or say goodbye to guys that you're not going to get, and maybe reach a little bit to get the ones you want. Let's see. Remember, Chris, you are 100% correct.
And
there goes Shea Theodore to Old Man Dube. So he takes back-to-back defensive picks there. He's shoring up his blue line. He's got Mackenzie Weegar, Moritz Seider, and Shea Theodore.
I just realized I'm not even the best Chris in this mock draft. Like,
here's Montour was the guy I wanted. So thanks, Ryan. Forsling goes, and again, my defensive options here are just wonderful. And Brock Faber, come on.
yeah,
I
that's it.
I have him as my 3 defensemen on a lot of my mocks.
Damn, that list, man. All that green again. We're in the same new mock draft, same Adam.
Yeah.
You should have started earlier.
And maybe taking the Skinner pick back, I probably should have just gone Heiskanen or Sergachev there or McAvoy. But hey, you know, maybe I'll be strong in other areas. Maybe I can make up for it. And then goes Devon Taves. I mean, come on, people. Nick Suzuki.
It's a run now.
It's a run. It's been a run. Oh boy.
10 defensemen have gone since Steve picked last round. This is a 12 team.
Yeah, I'm not going to love my defensive core. 3 picks till my turn. Ant's on the clock here. Let's see what he does. Kevin Fiala, that's one of your guys.
Always nice having Kevin Fiala on the team.
There goes Eric Carlson. So another defenseman goes. The way Chris kind of looked away, that makes me think that was a guy who's considering. He takes Joseph Wall, and now I'm on the clock. Let's see here.
I need a goalie.
All right. First thing I'm going to do is a guy who I had in my top 10 didn't make it on our consensus list, but I know Chris is a little skeptical of them this year. I think for a lot of the Utah players, playing in front of a crowd and a owner that is going to, you know, that actually invests in the team is going to give him a little bit of a boost there. So I'll take them. I can no longer wait on another defenseman. I have to grab one here. I don't love any of these guys as my number 2 defenseman. I'm going to go with Luke Hughes. I know he's hurt, but when he comes back, I think maybe that helps me out a little. Maybe I'll have to IR him. I'm going to be thin at defense to start on this team. If it was a real one, nonetheless, I'm okay with it. I didn't love anybody else there. There goes Boldy, so Chris gets his guy as well. The way Chris likes Matt Boldy is the way I like Clayton Keller. Like it's like exactly the same.
I have Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov on the same team. Just get me that Minnesota Wild jersey.
Now, there goes Macklin Celebrini at pick 8.3. I think that's a tad early for him. But if, again, you know, it's a little too early for me to start taking shots on guys that I'm confident in. But, you know, maybe Celebrini just has that, you know, we know he's winning the Calder by Christmas kind of thing, and he has that kind of season. So we'll see. There goes Jonathan Marchessault, another one of Anthony's guys there. I think he's going to have a nice year in Nashville. I think that's going to be a pleasant signing for them.
Yeah, if he goes along with Steven Stamkos in that second line there, I think that's going to be it's going to be very good for Nashville. That's for sure. Hopefully, good for me.
Defensemen continue to go here. I mean, so look at the amount of green on the screen from round 5 on. Matthias Ekholm, Zach Werenski go after Anthony's picks. There's Mika Zibanejad at 8.7 with Mark on the clock. He takes Alexander Georgiev. That's a guy I'm avoiding. You want to talk about guys we're avoiding in the crease. Like, yes, I know he's going to get wins, and if you're in a league where goalie wins is heavily weighted, then Georgiev is fine. But I don't know. I don't know if he makes it through the season as a starter. Like, yes, I know he played better in the playoffs last year, but if he kind of goes back to his like wishy-washy, like 1 week he's good, 1 week he's bad, I don't know how much the Avalanche put up with that. Maybe Justice Anunin is the guy that they give him a chance. He played well after he had a few rough starts when they first brought him in, but then he really played well after that. So I could see maybe a shift there. I get more defensemen going. Geez, John Carlson, then Joel Eriksson Ek at center to Ryan, which I really like that pick in the 8th round. Then Jacob Chikrin and Brent Burns on the turn here. People shoring up their blue lines, and I will not be one of them, unfortunately. And there goes Aaron Ekblad. Jeez.
There are no defensemen left.
Is everybody in this mock listening and just like, you know, thumbing their nose at me right now? Like, come on now.
There are no defensemen left. Shut it down.
I might go 0 defenseman the rest of the way here. Noah Hannafin, I mean, geez, this is what we talk about where you have to reach for defensemen sometimes, and this is it. There goes Blake Coleman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Adam. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
You know what, man. Chris would have taken him if you didn't. So like, I can't get too mad. There goes
Oh,
Alex
man.
to Steve. Good pick there at 9-10. Gonna play on the Red Wings top line.
I get like maybe he wasn't a top 10 right winger, but there's like the disrespect right now to Brock Besser is just a little too strong for my liking here. Like it's just he can't be falling this far in a 12-teamer. That's not okay. I didn't need him, but there's no defenseman left, so I took him.
Here's what I'm doing. Since they're gonna play on the same line, and I already have got Bratt, I'm gonna stack Nico Hischier with him, and hopefully get some big nights out of that. And I love Hischier. This is a spot where he's been going. He's not gonna go past the 110 range, maybe 115 if you're lucky. Do I really have to reach for a damn defenseman here? I guess I do.
Couldn't have waited for Nico Hischier.
No, I couldn't have. Waiting has not done well for me today. Taking Drew Doughty at pick 10.1. I mean, as a third defenseman, once Luke Hughes is healthy, and if he maybe usurps that top power play spot from Dougie Hamilton, like some guys are thinking, sure. But silly me taking Evan Bouchard in the second round, thinking I'm going to have a good. No.
You got fooled.
And Yuri Slavkovsky goes there. No surprise there. I'm surprised, for Chris, he gets his shabs of his hair players. Share of Habs players is the right way to pronounce that. Phil Peronic goes another defenseman to Steve. Then Anthony takes Alex Lafreniere. Really strong pick there. If I wasn't so desperate for a
You're
defenseman,
frazzled, man. You're frazzled right now.
I am frazzled. If I wasn't just desperate for a defenseman, I would have taken a laugh. There goes Petrangelo, Freddie Anderson, UPL, Jake Sanderson, Mark Scheifele, or all those picks. That takes us to 10-9. On the clock at 10-10 was Ryan. He takes Seth Jones, and there goes Patrick Kane. Chris on the turn here as we are about to enter round 11. I got to say, this 12-teamer has actually been moving quicker than I thought. This is because everybody's just taking the next best defenseman available, not even thinking about it.
They're just going on the suggested defenseman at the top and just say, okay, that one's left.
I'm not bitter or anything.
No.
All right. So Darcy Kemper, who is a goaltender, that's a strategy I've been going with lately and probably would have better served me today was wait on goalie 2. I'm big on Darcy Kemper this year, and you can usually get him in that 90 to 120 range. Somewhere in that area, you can get him if you wait. So that's what should have been the play I should have done today. I did not. So on the turn, he takes Anthony Stolars. And then 11-2 to Old Man Dubes. He takes Brandon Hagel. After him, Ryan gets Jordan Kyrou at 11.3. Then Shane Gostisbehere at 11.4 to Craig. Pavel Buchnevich at 11.5 to Mark. And back on the clock here is Matthew. He takes Alex Tuck. There goes Nikolai Gilers. Frank Vetrano to Kevin. And now Anthony's on the clock.
Oh, boy. Decisions.
Because of the run of defensemen, there's still some real strong wings out there. And centers, for that matter.
I'm going to go with Tomas Hertl.
Love that pick.
Need another center.
And that's about where he's been going, is around 130 to 140. There goes Bo Horvat.
I've never been sniped so much in my life.
Let's see.
I mean, I don't even have a player lined up.
I'm trying to find a player to line up right now.
Here, let's take a shot here.
Mr. Skinner. My turn.
I think Skinner's going to have a really good year in Edmonton.
Right now, Slade going to play with Draisaitl according to projections here. All right, you know who I'm going to take, and this is a guy that gets overlooked. Drake Batherson. I know he didn't have the best year last year, but I mean, he hits, he shoots the puck, 27 goals, 39 assists projected. I'm going to take him with one of my picks there, start filling out my wing, and
I feel like we've had deja vu about Batherson.
Yeah, probably. All right. Do I continue the disrespect to John Tavares, or do I take a different center?
No, you can continue to disrespect him. It's fine.
All right. So I'm going to take Robert Thomas, top line center in St. Louis. 66 assists last year. We'll see how Jake Neighbors does this year. Let's see if maybe he gets some more goals, and maybe Thomas gets even more assists. So there goes Aiden Hill and Michael Bunting in the next 2 picks. Let's see here. There's a guy I could have taken there that I'm hoping is there when it gets back to me, but probably won't be. Connor Ingram, that was a guy I was considering as a third goalie, but because I invested so heavily in those other 2, I didn't feel like I could spend a 12th round pick on a goaltender there. That's a great pick by you.
Yeah, running out of options with goalie. But if you're telling me Sorokin 1, Connor Ingram 2, and I think Utah's going to have a good year this year. I think it's they finally have their place, like you mentioned earlier. I think it's time.
They invested in the blue line, so that's always going to help your goaltending situation out. So yeah, Connor Ingram goes to Ant, then Brady Shea, Evander Kane, Thomas Harley, Elias Lindholm, Jordan Binnington, John Tavares finally goes at 12.10. Ilya Samsonov, and about to make the last pick of the 12th round is other Chris, and he's got the first pick of round 13. 12-team leagues are no joke. It's deep. I mean, it's 14 teams. I'm in a 14-teamer, and you can't sleep in that league either. But it's a less roster positions as a result to try and balance that out a tad. So Zuccarello goes with his first of the back-to-back picks there on the turn to open up round 13. Let's see what he does. Let's move the board down here. And there goes Yevgeny Malkin and Brock Nelson, and Martin Necas. So good 3 picks in a row right there. Malkin's a guy you can probably buy low, and maybe if he has a little bit of a run sometime in the season, sell him. Get him and sell him.
He's going to get hurt. You just don't know when.
Exactly.
But I did have a conversation with somebody about this. I said, hey, if you get a point per game player, but he only plays like 60 games, it's still a point per game. So,
Yeah, I agree. So here we go. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with some of my remaining picks here. I know who I want if he gets to me. See if that happens. And there's a certain way I like to handle, these mock drafts are only a 4-man bench. So and there goes Valery Nichushkin and then Mark Stone and Thomas Shabbat. There's a certain way I like to handle it. I don't want to tip my hand with strategy, but I'm not going to be doing a certain thing today just because of the way things have gone. 3 picks till my turn. And I'll reveal what I'm talking about after I make these next 2 picks.
Celebrini went earlier, right?
Celebrini he went round 8, I believe. There goes Matvei Mishkov.
Yep.
Love that pick here. Patrick Laine to Steve. Let's see what Chris does. There are some drafts round 13 is probably a good shot to take Mishkov in a 12-teamer. There goes Bowen Byram. So he gets one of the remaining defensemen that's actually halfway decent. All right. This was the guy I wanted last round, and I was able to wait on him and get him. Jake DeBrusk. I think he's going to have a really strong year at Vancouver. A guy you could get later in draft that could provide some value to you. I can't believe it, the defenseman I'm looking at here. All right, I'm going to take Justin Falk because I think he's going to end up he's going to benefit and get some power play time
because he's a defenseman. That's that's the criteria right now.
Defensive eligible. That's where we're at this point. There goes Radko Gudas, the new captain there of the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah, because with Torrey Krug out, it looks like Falk is going to be on that top power play unit, so I think he's going to benefit. That's a guy you can maybe, if you're in a situation like me where you waited too long on defenseman, maybe that's a guy that you can grab in these rounds, but actually does okay for you. Jack Quinn going there after Radko Gudas to Steve with Anthony on the clock here, making he's got in the 14th round, he's got 3 picks left to make. Adam Larson, fresh off a contract extension not too long ago. There goes Logan Thompson. Andrei Kopitar, there's some value for you in round 14.
That is some value. Holy.
Him, and there's another center that gets grossly overlooked. And I'll say it because I'm not taking any more centermen. Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's, that's a guy that, at this stage in the draft, you need a center and you get him. It's like glad I got him. JJ Peterka, Pavel Mintyukov, Jared McCann, all those picks go through 14-9, 14-10, Darnell Nurse, 14-11, Jamie Benn. About to wrap up the 14th round and kick off the 15th round here. We'll see what happens. Now, the strategy I was referring to earlier is with the 4-man bench in these mocks, I like to have a goalie, a defenseman, a center, and then one of the wings, or both, depending upon eligibility. The class of defensemen today, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I don't think I'm going to be carrying a bench defenseman.
I wonder if they carry stats on like how many, like how early defensemen were taken in drafts this year versus last year. I feel like the ADPs are gonna, like, they're slowly gonna like go up. Like everybody used to just put defensemen later on. They'll be like, we'll get that later, and then everybody listened to us, and now defensemen are just flying off the board here.
Love that pick of Justice Anunin there by Ryan. That's a goalie that I've been snagging as my third. But yeah, I agree. Like it used to be in a draft where like people would be like, "Oh, you took a defenseman this early," and now it's like, yeah, you don't. I'm a cautionary tale. Don't end up like Adam.
It's an evergreen segment here. Don't wait on defensemen like Adam.
That would be like my remember the DARE drug program growing up? That would be like my thing that I'd go into classrooms and talk about. Don't wait on defensemen. Travis Sanheim, also another guy at this stage of the draft that can provide some value. Falk or Sanheim are the two guys that are like, all right, if I could get one of those as my 4, or better yet, as my bench defenseman, great. But after those guys as a number 4, I don't want to play anybody as my 4th defenseman then.
Another good pick there, Shilov. I mean, if Demko is not ready to go and he misses an extended period of time, you basically got a living body to play goal for the Vancouver Canucks. All right, I'm going to take a defenseman.
So there goes Nick Schmaltz, Alex Laferriere, and Jeremy Lauzon. He's going to get his hits.
I have cornered the hit market with Radko Gudas and Jeremy Lauzon. That's how this draft has gone for me, if anybody was wondering.
So I take Philip Gustafson as my 3rd goalie. At least we know he's going to get a decent amount of starts in Minnesota, no matter how the season goes. And there's just not a lot left here for me to pick. You know what? I'm taking this guy just solely to flip my finger at Chris. I said I wasn't taking another center, but I did.
I was aggressive. I want everybody to listen carefully here, okay? This is the player you take in the last round, okay? Now, he's not going to pop up here very often, but you heard it here first, okay? We're taking Lane Hudson.
I've seen that name being thrown around. I believe that came up on a Slapshot podcast recently as well.
It may or may not have been a short somewhere. Just pay attention.
There goes Varlamov. Now, Ant, were you considering Varlamov to kind of handcuff him with Sorokin if he was available there?
I wasn't. I was considering who I'm drafting now, and that's the Utah backup goalie.
So there's your handcuff. Good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's the thing with the Lightning or the Oilers. I'm okay with, even if the goal, with your last round pick, taking your handcuff goalie, even if you're like, Jake Allen's not going anywhere in drafts. But if you have Jacob Markstrom and you want to spend your last round pick on Jake Allen, that's not a bad way to go. So I'm never against handcuffing, but with teams where like a Vasilevsky or a Skinner, they'll play Calvin Pickard a little bit in Edmonton, but it's going to be, that's where I don't do it as much. There goes Dylan Strome, Mason Marchment, Teuvo Teravainen, Martin Popisil, Cam York, who might, maybe get a little more power play time. Maybe he starts to usurp Travis Sanheim a little bit. We got 3 picks to go here before we wrap up this 12-teamer.
You really start considering the goalie tandem once you start seeing where they're going. Like the top goalies had started to go, and I was not going to get one of them. So that's when I transitioned to putting a couple of tandems together. I had a couple of them lined up, and whichever one fell to me was going to be that one. And I took the Utah guys. I was considering Aiden Hill and that group out there in Vegas, but
Chris took that from you. Joey Decord, the last goalie to go there. And then William Eklund is the last pick of the draft from the San Jose Sharks. I love that because Eklund's already played last year. So it's gonna be his second year in the league. So there's not that adjustment. Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini will be adjusting. William Eklund's already done it, and he looked strong last year. That is a guy I'm excited to watch with my San Jose Sharks flex plan this year. But let's recap the draft here. Let's start with let's go with Anthony first. We'll go that way, and then we'll do the Silver Fox perhaps. Let's see. So Ant goes Cale Makar. We talked about him getting that first defenseman, pairing him with our number 4 right wing Matthew Tkachuk. And then let's take it from here, Ant, because I really like your team top to bottom here. I think you built yourself a nice team. Some people may think your goaltending's a little thin, but if Sorokin bounces back, you're very fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for Sorokin to kind of have that bounce back season and for the Islanders to be somewhat, in contention. Maybe what was the state of survival is the Islanders fan, correct? I'm hoping that they have a good season on hand. And once I saw Thatcher Demko go beforehand, I was like, you know what? I think it's time. I would not have went Demko that early, considering that Sorokin, Bobrovsky, even Skinner, probably even Joseph Wall, I would throw in that list. I don't know if I would take Demko over them. I just don't. But
healthy Demko, yes, but mystery injury Demko, no.
Yeah, we just don't know, and we can't play that game this early into the a fantasy draft. Ovechkin, I finally got with Ovechkin or Sid. I was bound to get one of them in one of these mock drafts. I took Ovechkin here. He's going for that goal record. I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to have a bounce back season this year. Charlie McAvoy to go along with Cale Makar. Kevin Fiala seems to always fall to me, so I'm always going to take him. Jonathan Marchessault as well has been hitting there. And when I saw you panic for defensemen, I said, you know what? I'm going to shore up my defense. So that's why I went Mike Matheson there. Took, I think, Alexis Lafreniere next. If he has anything of the season that he had last year, probably even better. That's a pick that's going to be one of those picks that you're going to want to take. Tomas Hertl for center as well. Connor Ingram was the second goalie in line for me. I really like where I was able to pick up Michkov there, Adam Larson to round out the defense, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go, if I was going to go another backup defenseman, but Nick Schmaltz was just sitting there for me, and he's going to get top line minutes. Always a solid player, and rounded it out with Utah with the Vijmelka.
Now, before we get to Chris's team, I'm going to throw this link in the chat here, everybody. If you want to join the Total Hockey Now league that we're going to be doing a live draft for on Thursday, October 3rd, the link is just dropped in there now. Feel free to sign up. We have up to 12 spots. Some spots are already taken, so get in while you can. And the draft will be Thursday, October 3rd, planning on a 8 o'clock Eastern draft. So we'll
live, right? That's going to be, is that live?
Be a live one. So that Thursday, instead of coming to you at 5, we're going to come at you at 8 with a live draft for the league for the year.
If some of you can't make it, it's fine. Like I will not cry too much because some of you have gotten too good. So go terrorize somebody else. But if you can make it, if your wife lets you out, just hop on in.
Now, Chris, why don't
be careful,
you
Chris? Be nice, because one of these people might be going ahead of you and might be drafting.
No. They started this. I see the same players. Some of them going to the same names around here. So I know some of them. Some of you guys have been doing your homework. That's good. You guys should be joining every pool that you can find. The office pool. The guy stops you at the bus stop and says, "Hey, man, you want to join a pool? Jump in," because some of you are good now. You have been doing the homework. You've been putting in the time. The problem is I want to be in easy leagues. I want to be in leagues with guys who don't know what's going on, or they all take Buffalo Sabre skaters. That's the league I want to be in.
On that note, Thursday Night Football, Tampa Bay, Atlanta could be a big battle for NFC South supremacy and the potential division title implications for later in the season. So you happen to throw that game on and forget, oh, I missed the draft. It's okay. Okay.
Nothing better than watching the Falcons lose and my fantasy team fall apart. Love it.
Now, speaking of fantasy team falling apart there, much like me, your blue line kind of came apart here. Why don't you run us through your draft here, which actually I think your first 4 rounds were excellent.
Once I knew I wasn't getting Cale Makar, Willie Nylander, please play the wing. Kirill Kaprizov, we know it's like it's out of the bag now. Big fan of Kirill. Jake Gensel, he just seems to fall to me. Every time I'm like in that range and I'm looking around, There's old Jake Gensel just hanging out saying, hey, I'm going to get 95 points. I'm like, all right. Adrian Kempe had some center designation, so I needed that. I wasn't a fan of Sergei Bobrovsky, but at that point, I needed a goalie. Stanley Cup winning team. Nobody's going to really challenge him. Good. Dylan Larkin, as long as he stays healthy, and who knows what happens in Detroit, that could work out well. Joseph Wall is kind of a goalie that's on a really good team. I just need him to stay healthy, please. Matt Boldy, because why not, right? We also said lots of nice things about Brock Besser. It is criminal for him to be in the 9th here. In a 12-team league in the 9th round, I mean, that's too far for me. That's too far. So I'm like, hey, I kind of have no choice. Uri Slafkovsky, because he's going to get like 70 points this year and throw out 150 hits. Jeff Skinner, just because that's kind of where we were at that point. Aiden Hill, I needed somebody to protect my Joseph Wall investment. I don't know what the disrespect is to Aiden Hill. Like, Ilya Samsonov's the backup there. So I know Hill, if he gets hurt, it's problematic. And then I figured once I saw that green slab just keep going back and forth, I knew I wasn't getting a good defenseman or one that I wanted. So I just said, I'm just going to punt this position completely and make my last 4 picks defensemen. So Bowen Byron, I'm hoping for some upside. Radko Gudas and Jeremy Lauzon, it's really simple. I am winning the hits category. Every week, it doesn't matter. I need both of them to just like swing their weight around. That's all that's it. If I'm not going to get points from my defenseman, they're going to throw their weight around and hit people. And then Lane Hudson, man. Lane Hudson, I don't know if he's going to stick right off the rip, but he had a really good, he's good and he's ready. I don't know how many minutes he's going to see. I don't know if he's going to steal the spot from Mike Matheson just yet, but he is an offensive defenseman who can skate. And if I'm going to throw a dart, I'm going there. That's the home run swing for me. If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. It doesn't matter. But if it works out in the way that I think it does and what Yahoo expects it to work out, they have him at 49 points this season. That is wild for a defenseman, especially a rookie. So taking my chance.
I was trying to push Aiden Hill as much as possible towards the later part of the draft. And as soon as you picked him, I was like, all right, it's time to get the second goalie. I'm surprised Luukkonen went that early up there. That one surprised me. But, Chris always does the woe is me part. And he had another good draft. I don't understand. He just missed out on Cale
Do you
McCarr.
not see my 4 defensemen?
Come on,
right,
man.
But you handled it well because
look at that.
Right. But the defense is the one position where if you take the approach you took where it's like, hey, I'm not going to have a good defenseman. I'm not going to have an offensive producing defenseman. Fine. You can just let them be the guys that get your blocks and your hits. And that's it.
I will say this. I will not bend. I am a big believer of what I call the zig and the zag. So when everybody's zigging, you got to zag no matter what. There's value to be found. Go out and find it. I would have taken a defenseman way before, but that middle cluster there, once I saw all those like Brock Faber off the board, Erik Karlsson, I had so many defensemen down low there. I even had Chris Letang on the list, and somebody was like, I'll take him. And I'm like, man, homie, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there were so many defensemen that just started to fall. And if that's the case, stick to it, right? You'll be in a league one day where you'll be able to make trades. So you'll be able to go out and get the value that you may have lost. But I will not bend to that, I got to get a guy here because at that point, you're behind the train, right? You're way behind. You're not going to get the value. Collect where else, right? I mean, I got Brock Besser at a good discount. I feel like I got Uri Slafkovsky at a good discount. Matt Boldy, Jeff Skinner. I feel like that upside there is okay, my defense won't be good, but I got 24 weeks of fantasy hockey to figure it out.
There was a lot of zigzagging in the strategy here today from me as well. You have to change where you're going. And, it ended up, working out, but you're going to take the best forward possible if he's 10 times better than the defensemen that are left. That's just the way it is. Same thing if it's the opposite way.
It's a good problem to have too many good players on your fantasy team, right? It's a good problem to have when you're trying to figure out who you're going to start on a Saturday. I know some people don't want to break their heads. this is fantasy, okay? Don't treat this like your job. This is more important. You got to, really bucker down there and try to figure out some of the matchups. And again, if you have good players, that means there's an owner somewhere who doesn't. Find him and take his defenseman.
Speaking of defensemen, let's get to my draft. Through the first 5 rounds, love my draft. Brady Tkachuk, Evan Bouchard, Vasilevsky, Eichel, Jesper Bratt. I'm happy as a clam. This is where it goes off the rails for me. I got tempted by, trying to do the Vasilevsky Skinner pairing. What I should have done is taken either Heiskanen, Sergachev, or McAvoy, one of those few that went later. Because this is where the draft just kind of goes off the rails for me, because you just see all that green in round 6 and round 7. And then I did do a little bit of the panic thing round 8. I see Luke Hughes, but at least Luke Hughes has a chance, even if he's going to start the year off hurt. I stash him on the IR. I find another defenseman to fill the void, and that's fine. So there we go. Let me get that off the screen, and then I will bring up my team in a second here on the other screen.
When you went Skinner, my thought process was Heiskanen, Sergachev, and McAvoy. I'm getting one of those guys because the other two might have went ahead of me, but I was going to at least get one of those guys in defense once you made that Skinner move.
Now,
Once I saw defenseman going, I'm like, oh man, Adam's behind the ball, isn't he? This is like, it's happening.
Sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and Adam's chasing defenseman. There's just no news there. After that Skinner pick, my run goes. So I take Clayton Keller, who I'm fine with getting in the 7th round. Kind of have to reach for Hughes a tiny bit there. But, again, like as a second defenseman, once he's back and playing, I'm okay with that. I don't feel like I necessarily chase defenseman there. Drew Doughty's a 3 defenseman, but I do get Heishier there. So I'm gonna rely on my forwards to really produce Drake Batherson, Robert Thomas, Jake DeBrusk. At that point, the Logan Cooley was a spite pick. What I should have probably did was taken Lane Hudson, because he's probably going to get a chance to start the year. And then depending upon what happens with him, depending on how long he's up there, maybe he bridges the gap to Luke Hughes a little bit. I don't know.
You tried to spite me, but you took the wrong guy.
Correct. So just not
when you needed a defenseman, you still took the wrong guy. He's like, hey, I'll show you by taking the wrong player when I needed something else, though. But I'll show you, Chris.
Do not let spite be a motivator in your picks. Lesson learned. And don't wait on defensemen, and don't let spite be a motivator. That is how you draft. You do those 2 things, you'll be okay.
The only person who didn't wait on defenseman out of the 3 of us was that. Everybody else in this league, all the other 10 managers was like, hey, we're just going to take defenseman when we should.
I just feel like there's maybe like you guys like all talked before the show, and there's a big joke on me, and then there we go, and then I'm left, happy to have Luke Hughes at that point.
You still got Evan Bouchard, top 3 defenseman too.
True, you have nothing to complain about. Fair. You do have an elite defenseman. Your problem was you took an extra Oiler, and that's usually the problem.
Look, you got the top defense, one of the top defensemen, top 3 in Evan Bouchard. If Luke Hughes gets healthy and improves upon last season, that'll be another good pick down there. Drew Doughty is a 3rd or 4th defenseman, so that's fine there. Justin Falk, those 2 guys,
I recovered, but it was bad for a little while. It was
the panic set in.
I was Chicken Little for a while. The sky was indeed falling.
But you got Logan Cooley, so technically you win the draft, right? So
of course, again, don't let spite be a motivator. Now let's see here in the chat. State of Survival wants to know, what about CFL fantasy? I don't even know a platform that would do it, but if you set the league up for next season, I will do CFL football fantasy, because I do a baseball league for 15, 16 years. I haven't paid attention to baseball in probably about 5 years, and I still was in the semifinals. So I'll absolutely give CFL a shot. Do me a favor. When you set that league up, set up the link to totalhockeynow@gmail.com or on one of your social media platforms, but there's the email address to get at us. But and again, sign up for the league. We posted that link in the chat earlier. There it is. If I'll have it up on Twitter as well at some point. Trying to fill that league up, get a 12-teamer going, and have a little fun. So that does it for mock draft number 9. Boys,
one more, right?
One more. We'll do a 10-teamer next week. We'll have a little fun. That'll be a nice, healthy draft, and then we do the real thing in 2 weeks.
You know what? There's a lot more nervousness going through a 12-team because you are now dwindling to like the lower depths of the. I could only imagine. Was it the 32 team that State of Survival said? I can only imagine that would have to be a keeper league, right?
Or you have to do it where it's like one center, one left wing, one right, maybe like
Okay.
two of each, no utility, maybe 2-3 defensemen. Like you'd have to put a cap on
Yeah.
goalies, like to make that work. Yeah, it'd have to be a limited roster. But
Wow.
yeah, I am down to do a 32 team hockey league. If you set that
32,
up,
but you only have like 10. Like, I don't know. You could start like 6 or 7 players that have like 3 bench or something. You can get away with it.
absolutely.
I mean, 10 total is still 320 players, but you know, there's somebody on the third line.
I would, yeah, I'm down for a 32 team league as long as we're not, carrying NHL size rosters, because then it gets a little crazy. But there you go. Don't forget, Total Hockey Now on YouTube, X/Twitter or Facebook. Content all across the board there, as well as this YouTube channel. New episode of Rip and Riff came out yesterday. Yeah, today's Thursday. Did some hockey cards there. Open up some 2021-22 Upper Deck SP hockey. So go check that out. New episode of the Slapshot podcast. What was the big topic this week?
So the top 12 picks, I ranked them in the correct order. I saw the top 12 here, the first 12 picks. They were incorrect because they were not what I had picked. Also, the most crushing game in the world is Puck Doku. I'm not going to give it away, but honestly, I think I'm going to have to up my amount that I can go see my psychologist for, because after that game of Puck Doku, I might need an extra session. So I'm not going to ruin it, but you should probably check it out and cry with me.
All right. Need a little cry. There you go. And speaking of a cry, potentially if the Mets season ends a certain way, Subway to Shea podcast. How are the Mets looking with the wild card? But they're ahead of the Braves now, right? They're looking good.
We are a game and a half ahead of the Braves I'm going to say the second wild card, because we are tied for the second wild card with Arizona, and we have the tie break. So things are going okay right now, but tough 4-game stretch coming up with the Philadelphia Phillies. Then we go to Atlanta, and then we finish with Milwaukee. But I will say this, I am adopting the hockey playoff mode. We are going beard here. We're trying to grow that playoff beard. We're trying to get into the playoffs with this bad boy. Let's go.
Okay.
And Craig, about to wrap things up here. Craig's got to get one in, like Indiana Jones pulling the hat out right on the.
What a Tom Wilson out of you, Craig. There on the way out, he's like, "Hey, are you waiting till 25?"
I got nothing for that. What am I going to say? In a 32 team league, my top defenseman would probably be Keandre Miller.
He's got the guy who's the 7th defenseman as a second defenseman. He's like, maybe he's playing tonight, maybe he's not.
You know
Ilya
what?
Labushkin.
Adam keeps picking last. He keeps going 12th or 10th. When the real draft comes, he's probably going to get first or something like he's going to be towards the beginning of the draft. They're going to switch it up on you.
He's gonna, you know what? Draft in the middle, so you could be you could see. Maybe you don't see the wave starting. Maybe that's it. You're too far on the end. You need to be in the middle of it so it can hit you.
I've come around on being in the middle in terms of drafting, but when you're hosting and drafting, the turn is the best place to go, because then I know I have the maximum amount of time. But I used to not want to be in the middle at all, like around in that like 4 to 7 range. Like I hated it. After like I said, when you do mock drafts, on your spare time, bounce around your positions, get used to seeing what it is. And once I started doing more of those in the middle, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't terrible. But
middle for 12, tough. Middle for 10, I think is a whole lot better. I did that the last draft. I went 5th out of the 10, and I thought I had a fine draft doing that. But in a 12-team league, I think it's a little bit harder. Even ninth was a little bit of a struggle for me, like mentally trying to figure out who to pick.
No, I mean, Chris, I know is going to have to mentally recover after today. I'm already starting to try.
I struggle from all the positions. It doesn't really matter which one. It's a struggle. I have to draft 9 so I can get Cale McCarr. There's no other way around it.
It just feels like once McCarr goes off the list, like Chris is totally just frazzled for.
I just don't know what to do after that. Once I take Kirill, and I'm like, okay, now what? Like now where do we go?
Colorado better send this guy a jersey right now so he could put it in the back there, hang it up. He deserves one. Does
anybody work at the Minnesota Wild PR? Can you guys get me a Kirill or a Matt Boldy jersey?
Maybe that's why you don't get Makar, because you're more of a Minnesota Wild guy now, and you can't be a Wild and an Avalanche in the same division. So maybe that's what's going on here.
Send me
We've
one
moved
of
off
each.
Devin
guys.
Levi. That jersey's put away in the.
XL jersey that'll fit over my shoulder pads and everything. XL, please.
XL, it's also what I wear. I will not be taking a Minnesota Wild jersey. Just send me a jersey of any defenseman and I'll take it, just as a reminder. But that'll do it for this episode of Total Hockey Now. Like we said, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Make sure you follow us on there. Hit us up with your fantasy questions online. Next week, 10-team mock draft, and we're doing NHL award odds for the season. We're going to go through 7 different trophies. So for @AntRivera86 and for @FuzzyChris91, the line mates I know and love, I'm at Pucking Thoughts. Back with you. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. State of Survival, Marek, everybody that was a part today. Craig. Love you guys, having you guys be a part of the show and a part of the mock. We hope to do it one more time before we do it for real in a couple of weeks here on another episode of Total Hockey Now.